What is going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Mike Roach podcast, where I talk everything sports, culture, politics, and beyond. You name it. Okay. Now, first of all, I'm glad to be back on the microphone because March break is officially over. Had some good quality time with my wife and the kids, but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back on this microphone because there are definitely some things that I want to speak about and some things that I want to get into. Number one on the agenda, Mark Carney. Mark Carney sworn in as the next prime minister after Justin Trudeau. So I want to touch on him a little bit. And then I want to talk about the NBA. So we're going to jump into sports. Talk about the issue that the NBA is having in regards to teams tanking and why it's such a major problem and how they fix it. That's the key thing, how they fix it. And then after that, I'm going to double back and talk a little bit more about Mark Carney and what it will be like, in my opinion, with him meeting and getting to speak with President Donald Trump. Okay? So, first on the agenda, Mark Carney. So, what do we know about this guy? First of all, and I just want to make something extremely clear. When I speak on these podcasts, I want to remind everybody, I don't try to tell people what to do in regards to who they should vote for. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not in the convincing business. I'm here to give you my opinion. I'll let you know what I think, but I don't try to convince you to vote liberal, to vote conservative. That's up to you. I just share my opinion. I give you my thoughts, and we can go from there. But so Mark Carney, just who is he? Because 4 or 5 months ago, nobody was talking about Mark Carney. None of us were. We were talking about what the heck is going to happen in Canada because it looked like it was going down the drain. Okay. And it's kind of weird for me to say that because to me, I'm still optimistic about Canada. I love this country, born and raised here, and I'm still very hopeful. But damn it, I wasn't very hopeful in regards to seeing some of these candidates that we had that were going to be running for the prime minister from the liberal side. Had more hope for Pierre Poilievre, but what does that show you about the liberal side? Honestly, when you didn't know who Mark Carney was a few months back, and by not knowing who he is, I mean really kind of the casuals. Like if you're really you know your stuff in regards to Canadian politics, you probably know who Mark Carney is, because first of all, a few things. The guy is a Harvard graduate, okay, in economics, studied at the university at Oxford, economics there as well, governor of the Bank of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England. I mean, clearly the man knows a thing or two about economics, and he's been in the private sector from some big-time companies as well. Mark Carney is nothing to play with from an economic standpoint, I'll tell you that much. But of course that's a big thing right now because all these things going on in regards to President Trump and tariffs and a trade war and all that kind of stuff. You need somebody who is well versed in this area, obviously. So I mean, you can give that to him. The problem I think with Mark Carney is that he is going to have to try to differentiate himself from Justin Trudeau. He's going to have to set himself apart from kind of the Liberal Party, kind of and kind of not. So yes, he is running in the Liberal Party, but he doesn't want to be seen as Justin Trudeau. He doesn't want that. Nobody wants that at this point. That would not be a good look. And a lot of Canadians are going to see Mark Carney and say, okay, is this guy the same as Justin Trudeau? Because if he is, we're not voting for him. We're just not going to be voting for him if he is like Justin Trudeau. So how does he now separate himself from Justin Trudeau? That is what he is going to have to do. And I do think he'll be able to do it. I don't exactly know how. We already know that he took off the consumer carbon tax already. So that's out the door. And that's something that Pierre Poilievre was going to try to use against him. Not sure exactly when it comes to the consumer carbon tax. I mean, does that mean like he's just getting rid of it for now? And then if he goes into an election and wins the election, he could somehow bring that back? Because now he did mention that even though he's getting rid of the consumer carbon tax, that Canadians are not going to find any relief in regards to their money when it comes to this consumer carbon tax. They came out and said that already. So I'm not sure what us as Canadians thought would happen as soon as that was eliminated, but we're not going to see any relief at the pumps or anything like that, is what it seems like. Okay. And that's going to probably be, a disappointment for a lot of Canadians. But also with regards to Mark Carney, from what I have read, has deep ties to the World Economic Forum. And that is probably a good thing for Canada in regards to him knowing the leaders in Europe, especially. And he just did meet with the president of France. He met with the president of the European Union. And so he is actually in Europe right now. The first thing he did after he got sworn in was go to Europe and meet with leaders out there. And I'm assuming that's because he wants to get some type of trade deal in place with the European Union so that Canada can have some type of trade deal so that they could depend more on Europe and less on the United States. I would assume that's what he went there for. Probably not a bad thing. Good place to start, in my opinion. Good strategy. Clearly, the U.S. is watching, and I'm sure they put two and two together as to why he went to Europe as well. But is that a good thing for Canada? Probably. I don't know the details of this, so I'm not going to get into it too much until I know some more of the details, but I'm assuming that's what he went there for. And, Carney, the questions that I have in regards to Mark Carney is, can he be the leader of this country? Canada desperately needs leadership at this point. And yes, I know that he is great in regards to economics, but there are other things that people are really concerned about. Education, immigration, crime, jobs. Obviously, the economy is a huge thing. But what kind of relationships is he going to be able to build with these other prime ministers and presidents and world leaders, right? What is his relationship going to be like in regards to the U.S.? And I know a lot of people probably hear that and say, oh, come on. What is up with you guys with kissing the ring to these damn Americans? It's not about that. It's about being smart. It's about being smart. And the one thing that I know is that the people they have in the White House right now, in regards to Donald Trump and others, they're not going to make it easy for Mark Carney if they believe he's just going to be another Justin Trudeau. That's really what it comes down to. They're not going to make it easy. And I'll touch a little bit more on that a little bit later when I speak about Carney and Trump and trying to build good relationships, because that's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a key point. And I'm sure over the next few weeks, as we learn a bit more about Mark Carney and hear him speak a bit more, Canadians are going to get a better understanding kind of who he is and what he can and can't do. At least have an idea when we hear about him speak on economics and other things. It's important that we hear him speak about other things as well. Okay, now in regards to him and Pierre Poilievre, clearly it's going to be those two who go up against each other in the federal election. It's going to be those two. Now, do I think that Mark Carney right now, if an election was called, would be able to beat Pierre Poilievre? No, I don't. I still don't believe that Mark Carney, as of right now, would beat Pierre Poilievre in a Canadian federal election. I just don't see that yet. But he does have a bit more juice. I will say that. And I think people are going to be willing to listen more to a guy like Mark Carney because of his economic background and the relationships that he has formed with prime ministers and presidents and billionaires. Remember, I did tell you he has deep ties to the World Economic Forum. That's a big deal as well. The Pay attention to that, folks. Pay attention to that. So in these next coming weeks, we will know a little bit more about Mark Carney. Can we trust the guy as of right now? I have no idea. I have no idea. Listen, as of right now, I think Pierre Poilievre still becomes the prime minister, the next prime minister of Canada. But Mark Carney does have a little bit of juice. And I think people are going to be waiting to see what he does or says or what comes out of him meeting with Trump. That's going to be a huge thing, seeing how he deals with these tariffs. Because trust me, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is still the beginning when it comes to these tariffs. Okay? It's still the beginning. And Mark Carney, I'm sure, is going to be handling this in a very different way. Because remember, before, when it came to this, we were hearing from Trudeau. We were hearing from Daniel Smith. We were hearing from Doug Ford. We were hearing from Jasmeet Singh. We're hearing from everybody. We're hearing from 10 damn different people. But when Carney is now in and sworn in, that's going to be the only guy that you're going to be hearing from for the most part. For the most part. You cannot have a leader and hear from 8 different people. You can't do that. That's just not going to work. So we will see what happens in regards to Mark Carney in these next few weeks as we hear him speak more, see the people that he's meeting with, and what it's going to be like when he speaks to the president south of the border, President Trump. And I'll get back to you about that in a little bit. The NBA, folks, the NBA is having a serious problem right now in regards to tanking. And I don't know, if you don't do something about this right now, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Like, are you kidding me right now? We've talked so much about NBA ratings going down, people not showing up to the games as much as they used to. I know that's how it is at Scotiabank Arena. It looks a hell of a lot more empty in there than it typically does. Why? Because there's a whole bunch of people that aren't in the damn lineup. Of course that's what it's going to be. Seriously, I mean, listen to these. I mean, Toronto, okay, abysmal. Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Washington. Nobody wants to watch any of those teams. Like, are you kidding me? Who wants to watch any of them? No offense. I'm just talking. This season, Phoenix, nobody even wants to watch Phoenix, for God's sakes. They got Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant, and people don't want to watch them. The Portland Trailblazers, San Antonio, New Orleans, Utah. At this point in the season, people just don't want to watch those teams anymore. And I'm not saying they don't have good talent, because these teams do have some really good individual pieces. They're just not very good right now because a lot of the guys are out of the lineup as well, right? When you look at Utah was just mentioned and got fined when Shams Charania mentioned that the NBA was investigating for not playing Marketing. And then the Raptors got called out on ESPN because they're saying, wow, what an injury that Brandon Ingram has with this sprained ankle. It's been a very long time since we've seen him play. Why the hell would you play him now? I mean, what is the point? San Antonio, everybody's gone from there. At least the guys that you want to see. Portland, ain't nobody watching them. Washington, God no. Charlotte, Lord have mercy. Brooklyn, no. Philadelphia, they got called out as well. Shams Charania, NBA was investigating them. And there was another team. I think Oklahoma City, I mean, who cares? They're going to be the number one finishing team in the NBA. Between them and Cleveland, at least. But what I'm saying is there's a terrible problem right now in regards to tanking. And the question is, how do you fix that? How do you fix it? Going forward, this cannot continue with the NBA. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And at some point, we have to not reward teams for tanking and going into games to lose on purpose. We just can't do that. And so the NBA needs to find a way to fix this. My proposal would be this. Right now, okay, so let me explain some things to people who don't really understand this. So, the teams eligible for the draft lottery are the 14 teams that miss out with being in the playoffs, okay? The final odds will be determined after the regular season is completed and after tiebreakers are settled between teams with identical regular season records, okay? Now, each team will be assigned the following odds for teams starting with the reverse order of regular season record. The default odds are as follows: 1, 2, and 3. So the three worst teams, 14%. After that, it goes to 12.5 for the fourth team, the fifth team, 10.5%. Then it drops to 9, 7.5, 6. So the better team that you are when you're not in the playoffs, your percentage, your lottery percentage of getting the top pick lowers. Okay? So let's say you're going to the playoffs, right? 8 teams make the playoffs. So now if you're 9th or 10th or 11th, your odds are lower than getting the number one pick compared to if you're Washington, who's 15th in the East, or Charlotte, who's 14th in the East, or if you're Utah, who's 15th in the West, or the Pelicans, who are 18th in the West, if you understand, where I'm going with this. What they need to do in the NBA is flip that, in my opinion. So to get teams to stop tanking, and to get them to continually play hard, what the NBA needs to do, in my opinion, is the best team to not make the playoffs has the highest odds of getting the number one pick. Let me repeat that. The best teams out of the 14 teams that don't make the playoffs get the highest percentage to get the number one pick. That way, it ensures that even though they might be out of the playoff race, these teams are still going to go at each other's necks to be the best team outside of the playoffs so that they can get away to improve their percentage to land the number one pick. So, for example, as of right now, let's just say that the standings that are in right now stay the same, right? And I'll give it to you right here. Cleveland, Boston, New York, Milwaukee, Indiana, Detroit, Atlanta, and Orlando. Let's say those teams right now are the lock to get into the playoffs. The best teams in the East after that are Miami, Chicago, and Toronto. Those would be your 3 teams, okay, from the East that would have the best percentage to get the number one pick. And on the other side, you have Oklahoma City, Houston, Denver, Memphis, LA, Golden State, Minnesota, and the LA Clippers. And then after that, it would be Sacramento, Dallas, and Phoenix. So Sacramento and Dallas have 33 wins. Miami and Chicago have 29 and 28 wins. So Sacramento, Dallas, and Miami would have the highest percentages to get the number one pick. That way, the incentive is that you're still going to be going at each other because you want the odds to get a best player to add to your team. And those teams who refuse, or not refuse, but damn it, who are terrible at upgrading their roster and upgrading their scouts and their GM, and who are not doing a better job. The Washington has been bad for so long. Charlotte has been bad for a very long time. Like, why are we rewarding those teams with the number one pick for them being ass? Why? Why are we doing that? That shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen anymore at this point. And teams just should not be rewarded for tanking. And when you do it this method, teams would keep their guys in the lineup because they're going to want to win as many games as possible. How unfair is it to the average NBA fan when you pay a premium on these tickets from months before the game is even here? And then by the time you end up at that game, Joel Embiid is not there, which is kind of understandable because he never really plays. But then Tyrese Maxey ain't there. Paul George ain't there. You know what I'm saying? Like this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And how long is this going to continue for? The NBA has to do something, and I think people should look at this method and say, you know what? Maybe Mike has a point there. And I wasn't the one who came up with this. I actually saw this on X, and I mean, obviously in 120 characters, and I'm elaborating on it, but I do think it's a very good idea. So if you're watching this, leave in the comments what you think. Let me know if you think this will work. Let me know if you if it wouldn't work in your opinion. I mean, obviously it's an idea, right? Like, I'm just trying to figure something out. So this is one of the things that I was thinking of could work. But if you don't think it'll work, leave in the comments why you don't think it'll work. Leave in the comments why you do think it would work. Maybe some of it would work and you can tweak it. But at least let me know what your thoughts are. And I can touch on it again at some point. Maybe if I bring on a guest and speak to somebody about it. But the NBA has to do something. It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the fans that they got to pay these high-ass ticket prices and then come to the games, and a lot of the guys are not in the lineup that we all want to see. That's not fair, and I don't like it for anybody. I think it's bad for the league that you're promoting pretty much losing. It's bad for the fans. It's bad for everybody, and they got to do something about it. Now, back to Mark Carney, okay? Mark Carney, I'm going to share my screen with you here because I saw an article that came out that said that, let me just share this because it'll make it a lot easier for me if I could just show you. All right, let's go here. Let's go in here and let's make this a full page layout for you. If I can figure out how to do it. There we go. All right, so Canada's ambassador to the U.S. says Prime Minister Mark Carney is looking to set up a conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump as soon as possible. In an interview with Fox Sunday, Ambassador Kristen Hillman said that Canadian side has reached out to the U.S. since Carney was sworn in as Prime Minister on Friday and was looking forward to connecting with Trump. She says Carney is seeking to forge a good and solid relationship with the president and that he respects what Trump is trying to do when it comes to enhancing the U.S. economy, but noted that Prime Minister wants to do the same for Canada. Hillman sidestepped a question on whether she believes there is anything Canada can do to avoid the reciprocal tariffs Trump is set to impose on other countries, noting a meeting with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick last week made clear that Canada will be affected starting April 2nd. Excuse me. So this is interesting here. This is interesting here to me. And now, it doesn't surprise me that Mark Carney knows that he's going to want to have some type of relationship with Donald Trump. I don't know what type of relationship it's going to be. I'm not sure he really cares to at the same time. I'm hoping they can be civil. I really do. Because to me, Canada and America are still stronger when they are allies and good trading partners. Now, will that be taken into effect when they meet with each other? I'm sure it will be. But also, I mentioned to you, Mark Carney is pretty much looked at as a genius when it comes to the economy and handling money and business overall. Now, to me, I don't think the relationship between Carney and Trump will be centered. I think because of the person that Trump is and what's going on with Canada at this point and how they've been going back with tariffs here, tariffs there from both sides, I think this can possibly either go really good or this can possibly go really bad. I'm not sure there's going to be an in-between at this point because Trump is going to be a hard person to reason with. And if he looks, I mentioned this earlier, if he looks at Carney as the same as Justin Trudeau, I don't think he will necessarily. I don't think he will. But if he does, it's not going to be good. And Trump is not going to make it easy at all for Carney, especially when he knows it again is the Liberal Party who they look at as like Democrats, right? Or essentially it is pretty much for the most part. Different, but kind of the same at the same time. I don't know what's going to happen in regards to this, to be completely honest with you. He will do things differently than the Liberal Party was doing before. In what way and how he will handle the tariffs, I'm really not sure. I don't know what angle he's going to try to attack this from, but I know he's going to be smart about it. And maybe Canadians may not necessarily like the way he's going to handle it. I really don't know. But from what I am seeing and hearing about Mark Carney is that Mark Carney is more conservative than people think. Is that the truth? I don't know that to be the case. But that is what I am hearing. I could be deadly wrong about that. We're about to find out. But at the same time, I am hoping that these two speak before April 2nd when all these tariffs are supposed to hit. Because I don't think it'll be a mess like when Trudeau was in power. I think Carney has the smarts to figure out a way to turn this around for Canada at a quicker rate. But at the same time, I still don't have much confidence for how this trade war is about to turn out. I really, really don't. And to me, Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, they're going to be going at it. I mean, they are going to be going at it for the next however months until this election is called. I'm hoping it gets called soon. I really do. I'm hoping it does not get dragged out until October. But to me, if Carney has the juice now, he might as well call the election sometime soon. Because as we know, you can have the juice now and then it free falls, right? So we'll see what happens here, folks. But listen, if you enjoyed today's topics, please take a moment to follow, subscribe, like, and rate the podcast. Your feedback is always welcome, and it helps me reach more listeners who are just about passionate about these topics as you and me are. Okay, don't forget to connect with me on social media. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can find me on Instagram at MikeRoach7, on X at MikeRoach23. And remember to check out some of my recent videos for more engaging content. And you can listen to me anytime on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. So, folks, it is your boy Mike Roach. There is so much going on. Glad to be back. March break is over, and I'll be back again with you soon. And I'm out.